A sudden alarm ripped through the darkness as 5 strangers' eyes fluttered open. Cold metal pressed against their bodies, and a swirling nebula beyond a viewport confirmed the impossible. They were no longer on Earth. Alex Harper blinked rapidly, her mind racing to process the sterile environment surrounding her. The 24-year-old barista had been finishing a late shift at a downtown cafe just moments ago, or what felt like moments ago. She pushed herself up from the cold metal floor, her hands trembling slightly as she took in her surroundings. "Is everyone okay?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper in the clinical silence that enveloped them. A few feet away, Morgan Tran, a 31-year-old garbage collector, was already on his feet, pacing nervously. His municipal route had ended hours ago, but he'd stayed late to tinker with some discarded electronics he'd salvaged. Now, he stood in this impossible place, muscles tense, ready for a fight that had no visible opponent. "Does this look okay to you?" he snapped, gesturing wildly at the curved metal walls and the viewport that revealed a vista of stars, unlike any constellation visible from Earth. Diana Blake, 45, adjusted her glasses with practiced calm. The university lecturer had been grading papers in her apartment when, what? Transported? Abducted. Her analytical mind was already cataloging details, searching for patterns in this sterile, alien environment. "Everyone stay calm," she said, her academic tone barely masking her own anxiety. "Panic serves no purpose. Let's assess our situation methodically." Richard Park, a 38-year-old accountant, let out a hollow laugh. He'd been crunching year-end numbers, worrying about deadlines' ordinary concerns that now seemed absurdly trivial. "Methodically," he repeated with a wry smile. "Sure. Let's methodically figure out how we ended up in what appears to be a space station." His cynical humor masked the terror threatening to overwhelm him. The youngest among them, Zoe Diaz, hung back, her slight 20-year-old frame pressed against a wall. The college computer engineering student scanned the room with wide eyes, cataloging every detail with remarkable precision despite her obvious fear. "The technology," she whispered, nodding toward a panel of softly pulsing lights. "It's responding to our presence, but I don't understand the interface." In the distance, strange mechanical groans and rustling sounds suggested they weren't alone. The 5 exchanged wary glances, strangers united by a shared nightmare. "We need to figure out where we are," Alex said, straightening her shoulders. Something about the bizarre situation awakened a dormant leadership quality she'd never needed in her coffee shop routine. "And more importantly, why we're here." Morgan pounded a fist against the nearest wall. "And how to get back home," he added, his voice tight with barely contained panic. Diana stepped toward a corridor that stretched out from their awakening chamber. "The only way to answer those questions is to explore, shall we?" The vast cylindrical structure extended farther than they could see, its curved walls lined with empty compartments resembling medical examination pods. Soft blue lighting illuminated their path as they cautiously made their way toward what appeared to be a central chamber. "Look," Zoe pointed toward a crystalline pedestal that stood in the center of the room, pulsing with a soft blue light. Unlike the angular, metallic design of the rest of the station, the crystal formation seemed almost organic, faceted surfaces catching and refracting the ambient light. Diana stepped forward, professional curiosity momentarily overriding caution. "Fascinating," she murmured, reaching out slowly toward the glowing crystal. "The structure resembles nothing in Earth's mineralogical catalog." "Maybe don't touch the alien crystal," Richard suggested, but his warning came too late. Diana's fingertips brushed against the faceted surface. The pedestal flared with blinding intensity, a shockwave of energy washing over all 5 humans. They cried out in unison as strange sensations rippled through their bodies. Alex gasped as she felt her skin tingle with an unfamiliar electricity. She watched in disbelief as her hand seemed to momentarily blur, atoms shifting visibly at her fingertips. Morgan shouted in alarm as a metal tool on a nearby table suddenly flew across the room, responding to his unconscious thought. "What the hell?" he cried, staring at his hands in horror. Diana felt a bizarre sensation of detachment, her consciousness momentarily hovering near the ceiling, looking down at her physical body, still standing by the crystal. Richard froze, his hands suspended in midair, surrounded by a strange, temporal distortion. Time itself seemed to bend around his fingers, slowing to a crawl. Zoe's eyes widened as the control panel across the room suddenly flickered to life. Streams of alien symbols, transforming into recognizable patterns that somehow made sense to her mind. "The station," she whispered. "It's responding to me, but I don't understand how I can read it." Morgan sank to his knees, hands gripping his head. "Are we all going insane?" His voice cracked with panic. Diana, heart racing but mind still analytical, raised her hands. "Everyone, stay calm. We need to test what's happening. These appear to be abilities of some kind." She sounded incredulous at her own words. Richard stared at the translucent veins visible beneath his skin for an instant before they returned to normal. "Test? What's happening is impossible." "Not impossible," Diana corrected. "Just beyond our current scientific understanding, which means there must be an explanation." She closed her eyes, concentrating, and gasped as her consciousness once again seemed to slip free from her physical form. Alex touched a nearby metal pipe, focusing on the strange tingling in her fingers. To everyone's shock, the pipe became brittle and crumbled at her touch. "I think," she said, voice trembling, "I can manipulate molecular structures." The implications cascaded through her mind, the ability to reconfigure matter itself with a thought. Terror and wonder battled for dominance as she stared at her hands. Morgan recovered enough to experiment, extending his hand toward a piece of debris. With concentrated effort, he managed to lift it telekinetically, directing it toward a locked doorway. The makeshift projectile slammed against the obstacle, creating a dent. A sudden flicker of light caught their attention, a holographic scan sweeping the room. The alien characters projected in the air meant nothing to most of them, but Zoe gasped. "Vrexian," she said, the unfamiliar word somehow materializing in her mind. "It's some kind of external alert." Morgan instinctively raised a telekinetic barrier of floating debris, creating a makeshift shield between them and the scan. Diana, emboldened by her earlier experience, concentrated until her consciousness detached again. Her astral form drifted upward, through a sealed hatch in the ceiling. "There are drones," she reported when she returned to her body moments later. "Patrolling the corridors above us. This station isn't abandoned." Richard, the most skeptical among them, tentatively experimented with his own strange ability. He focused on a plastic lock cover securing a data terminal, accelerating time in a small bubble around it. The plastic rapidly aged and deteriorated, melting away and granting them access. "Time slipping through my fingers," he muttered, staring at his hands with a mixture of fascination and horror. "Literally." Zoe approached a console, placing her hands on the alien interface. The symbols reorganized themselves into readable English before their eyes. "I'm interfacing directly with the system," she said with quiet amazement. "It's translating everything for me." With a thought, she temporarily disabled the security cameras, monitoring their section. As they explored further, more clues emerged from the abandoned station. In living quarters, they found boots hastily discarded, datapads abandoned mid-task, and logs written in the same alien language Zoe could now somehow decipher. "Experiment 15B," she read from one pad. "References to Terra genetic markers, and something called Protocol Phoenix." The armory they discovered contained arrays of unfamiliar energy weapons and what appeared to be throwable nanotechnology devices. A smaller crystalline pyramid caught Alex's attention, projecting holographic instructions when she approached. Their exploration was interrupted by an automated announcement reverberating through the station. Unauthorized lifeforms detected, begin lockdown. Red strobes intensified around them, bathing the metallic corridors in crimson warning lights. "We need to reach the command center," Diana urged, "before whatever security systems this place has decides we're a threat." Morgan focused his telekinetic power on a ventilation grill, tearing it free with a screech of metal. "This way," he called, creating an impromptu entrance to a maintenance shaft. As they crawled through the narrow passageway, a shared sense of urgency drove them forward. Something or someone had triggered the station's containment protocols, and time was running out to understand why they were brought here. The command center revealed a panoramic viewport that took their breath away. Beyond the reinforced glass, stars stretched into infinity, but the vastness of space was interrupted by the approach of a sleek, predatory vessel bristling with weapon arrays. "That doesn't look friendly," Richard murmured. The vessel's design was angular and aggressive, gleaming with a dark metallic sheen that seemed to absorb rather than reflect the starlight. As it entered the station's docking perimeter, a communication channel opened automatically. A being appeared on the main view screen, an unsettling hybrid of insectoid and feline features. Chitinous armor covering a powerful frame. When it spoke, the words somehow translated directly into their minds. "Humans, identify yourselves," the alien commander demanded, mandibles clicking with barely contained aggression. "This station belongs to the Vrexian Imperium. Surrender or be destroyed." Diana stepped forward, hands trembling but voice steady. "We are from Earth. We were brought here against our will. We seek only to understand what happened." The commander's compound eyes narrowed, radiating contempt. "Stellaris Outpost was abandoned decades ago. Your presence is illogical." When the communication ended, debate erupted among the 5 humans. "We have zero chance in a straight-up fight," Richard argued, the accountant's risk-averse nature fully evident. "At best, we escape." "Surrender is suicide," Morgan countered, fists clenched. "Did you see that thing? We use what we've got or we die." Zoe, fingers dancing over the control interfaces, shook her head. "The station's systems are glitching when I try to override. It's almost as if it doesn't want me to." Alex, who had been silently studying the holographic displays, looked up with sudden determination. "Our powers exist for a reason. We need to interface with the Nexus core before they attack." "The logs mention Protocol Phoenix, a last-ditch defense," Diana added. "The core might hold the key." They agreed to split up Alex, and Diana would navigate maintenance tunnels to locate the core. Morgan and Richard would search for weapons caches. Zoe would remain in the command hub, attempting to hack deeper into the system. The Vrexian ship had already begun docking procedures. Time was running out. Alex and Diana crawled through cramped maintenance shafts, following Diana's astral form as it scouted ahead. Automated defense drones patrolled the corridors, forcing them to move with painstaking care. "These conduits," Diana whispered, pointing to pulsating power lines that ran along the tunnel walls. "They're all converging somewhere below us." Meanwhile, Morgan and Richard encountered their own obstacles. A squad of robotic sentries blocked their path to the armory. Morgan raised a telekinetic barricade of debris, while Richard created a temporal bubble around a rusted blast door, slowing time enough to pry it open before the robots could react. In the command center, Zoe's fingers flew across interfaces as she decoded the station's databases. Star maps and schematics flashed before her eyes, overwhelming, yet somehow comprehensible through her new ability. "Sector Theta 9, she communicated through the station's internal comm system. "The core is in Sector Theta 9, deep below the main living quarters." They regrouped at a central elevator shaft, their newfound abilities having been tested and honed through necessity. The elevator ride was a harrowing experience, shaking violently. Lights flickering as the ancient machinery protested its sudden reactivation. When the doors finally opened, they found themselves facing a heavily secured chamber. 5 hand-shaped indentations surrounded the entrance, an unmistakable biometric security system. "It's meant for us," Alex realized. "The 5 of us specifically." Each placed a hand in the corresponding recess. The chamber's door slid open with a hiss of hydraulics, revealing a spherical crystal, suspended in the center of the room, larger and more complex than the one that had awakened their abilities. "The Nexus Core," Diana breathed. 5 pedestals surrounded the crystal, each with another hand-shaped indentation. Without discussion, they moved to take their positions around the core. "Together," Alex said, and as one, they placed their hands on the pedestals. The chamber's spherical crystal flared to life, enveloping them in prismatic light. A flood of images and knowledge poured into their minds, the collective memory of Stellaris. They saw the purpose of Experiment 15B, the creation of hybrid guardians to stand against Vrexian expansion. They understood Protocol Phoenix. If the station was threatened, these hybrids must reawaken it as a warship. And most chilling of all, they glimpsed the coming darkness, the Vrexian Imperium's genocidal purge of all non-conforming species. Holographic instructions materialized around them, showing exactly how their unique abilities could combine. Morgan's telekinesis would reshape the station's hull plating. Richard's time bubbles would stabilize energy surges as structural reinforcements shifted. Alex's molecular manipulation would reorganize alloys into energy conduits. Diana's astral projection would oversee systems integration. Zoe's mind link would reprogram the core's AI grid. As this knowledge flowed into them, the station shuddered. The Vrexians had breached the outer defenses. "They're coming," Zoe warned, her mind still connected to the station's sensors. The chamber door burst open as Vrexian shock troopers poured in, energy lances crackling with deadly power. But as each intruder crossed the threshold, the 5 humans responded with their newfound abilities, working in perfect harmony. Richard created time pockets that slowed the attackers to a crawl. Morgan telekinetically hurled debris, pinning several against the walls. Alex focused on their weapons, destabilizing the molecular structure until they crumbled in the Vrexians' hands. Diana's astral form intercepted cloaked saboteurs attempting to access maintenance vents. Zoe rerouted power to defensive turrets, which fired disabling pulses at the Vrexians' armor. The chamber shuddered violently as the station began to transform around them. Hull sections realigned, weapon systems activated, and dormant engines roared to life. The 5 humans stood at the center of this metamorphosis, channeling energy through their bodies in a process both painful and euphoric. A final Vrexian commander burst through the defensive perimeter, wielding a deadly plasma glaive. In a perfectly coordinated move, Alex made the glaive's alloy brittle. Morgan flung it aside. Diana wrapped the commander's consciousness in a stasis field. Richard enclosed him in a temporal bubble, and Zoe shut down life support systems in his armor. The commander collapsed, defeated without lethal force. As the transformation completed, they felt the station now a sleek warship named the Aegis of Phoenix respond to their collective will. Outside, the remaining Vrexian vessels retreated into warp drive, confused and demoralized by the station's metamorphosis. The 5 regathered in the core chamber, breathing heavily from the exertion of battle and transformation. "The station's core signals full integration," Diana reported, her astral form having verified the ship's status. "We have control." "We just repelled an entire Vrexian boarding party," Richard said incredulously, "without a single death on our side." Zoe's eyes glowed faintly as she communed with the ship's AI. "All systems nominal," she announced. "We are now the station's new guardians." Morgan ran his hand along a wall panel, feeling the responsive metal. "The hull literally senses our thoughts," he marveled. A heavy silence fell as the implications of their situation sank in. "So, what now?" Richard finally asked. "We're 5 random humans, a huge alien warship, and a target on our backs." Alex gazed out at the stars through a newly formed viewport. "We can't go home yet," she said quietly. "We need to understand why we were chosen and what the Stellaris mission truly is." Diana nodded soberly. "Protocol Phoenix was meant to safeguard galaxies from Vrexian darkness. We must honor that purpose or risk devolving into tyrants ourselves." Morgan paced the chamber, energy still coursing through him. "Let's find other Earth hybrids that might be scattered across the stars. We can't be the only ones." "The station's star charts show dozens of seed planets," Zoe confirmed, eyes still glowing with the interface. "There could be thousands like us." They set a course for the nearest hyperlane hub, Cassiopeia Prima neutral trade world, where they hoped to gather intelligence and potential allies. As the Aegis of Phoenix prepared to enter hyperspace, they debated what to call themselves. "Phoenix Guard," Richard suggested. "Galactic Aegis," countered Diana. "Stellaris 5, Zoe offered. "Phoenix 5, Alex said finally, "to honor the protocol that brought us together." The others nodded in agreement, a name that acknowledged both their origins and their purpose. As stars blurred into streaming lines of light outside the viewports, each of them quietly reflected on the impossible turn their lives had taken. Alex Harper, once a shy barista, now embraced leadership, resolving to study Stellaris technology with the hope of one day returning to Earth-bridging human and alien understanding. Morgan Tran tempered his brash instincts, training to control his telekinesis with the goal of salvaging derelict vessels and rescuing stranded survivors. Diana Blake began recording a comprehensive Stellaris Codex, preserving the ancient knowledge they had inherited and establishing ethical guidelines for power use. Richard Park wrestled with the implications of his temporal abilities, dedicating himself to understanding the anomalies they created and preventing their misuse. Zoe Diaz blossomed from an anxious student into a confident technomancer, developing a rudimentary AI avatar modeled after the Stellaris collective consciousness. As they watched warp lines streak past, Alex voiced the thought they all shared. "We began as 5 uncertain lives, but now we carry an extinct species legacy. The galaxy is watching us and judging whether we will be its salvation or its doom." The Aegis of Phoenix hurtled toward a vast nebula, 5 silhouettes framed in the core chamber's glow, united by purpose and uncertain hope. Their journey was far from over-encounters with other hybrids, battles against Vrexian expansion, and the moral question of whether 5 ordinary humans could bear the weight of an entire civilization's destiny awaited them among the stars. 3 weeks had passed since their abduction and transformation. The Phoenix 5 had established a routine aboard the Aegis, each gravitating toward roles that complemented their new abilities. Alex spent hours in what they now called the molecular lab, practicing precise control over her matter manipulation. What had started as crude alterations, making metals brittle or reinforcing structural weaknesses, had evolved into delicate work. Today, she was attempting to reshape a piece of Stellaris alloy into a communications device. "Careful," Diana cautioned from the doorway. "You're pushing yourself too hard." Alex wiped sweat from her brow. "We don't have the luxury of taking it slow. The Vrexians will regroup eventually." Diana's astral form had been patrolling the outer hull, a practice she maintained hourly. Her consciousness could now travel nearly a kilometer from her physical body, though the effort left her exhausted. "Speaking of which," she said, "I detected unusual energy signatures at the edge of our sensor range. Zoe's analyzing them now." They made their way to the command center, where Zoe sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed. Her consciousness merged with the ship's systems. Lines of code and spatial coordinates flowed across screens around her. "Got it," she murmured, eyes opening. "It's not Vrexian. The signature matches Stellaris technology, similar to our own. Morgan looked up from the tactical display he'd been studying. Another Phoenix Protocol activation. Possibly, Zoe replied, but it's distressed. The pattern is erratic. Richard, who had been using his temporal abilities to accelerate the repair of damaged systems, joined them. A trap? Or survivors who need help, Alex countered. Either way, we have to investigate. The decision was unanimous. They altered course, the Aegis of Phoenix slipping from regular space into the shimmering tunnel of hyperspace. When they emerged, they found themselves facing an asteroid field, and within it, a smaller vessel clearly of Stellaris design. Life signs? Diana asked. Zoe's eyes glowed as she connected deeper with the sensors. 3. Humanoid. Weak but stable. Morgan prepared a telekinetic barrier as they approached, ready to deflect any debris or unexpected attacks. Richard created a temporal field around their navigation systems, giving them additional reaction time through the dangerous asteroids. Alex reinforced the hull's molecular structure where necessary, while Diana's astral form scouted ahead. The ship is damaged, Diana reported. Impact trauma, not weapons fire. I see movement inside. They managed to dock with the smaller vessel, creating a pressurized walkway between ships. Alex led the boarding party, with Morgan and Richard flanking her. Inside, they found 3 humans, 2 men, and a woman unconscious but alive. Like the Phoenix 5, they showed signs of genetic modification. One man's skin had a metallic sheen. The woman's eyes glowed with an inner light. The second man's body seemed to phase slightly in and out of solid form. More hybrids, Alex breathed. Just like us. They transferred the survivors to the Aegis Medical Bay. As Zoe interfaced with their ship's logs, a disturbing picture emerged. They were on a research mission, she explained, studying a derelict Vrexian outpost. According to these logs, they were activated 6 months ago, well before us. Why didn't they return to Earth? Richard asked. Diana, who had been examining one of the unconscious hybrids, looked up gravely. Because they couldn't. Look at this. She projected a star chart from the rescued ship's database. Earth was marked with a warning symbol. The Vrexians have quarantined our solar system, Diana translated. They're monitoring for Phoenix Protocol activations. The implications hit them like a physical blow. Earth was effectively cut off. Returning home would only lead the Vrexian fleet straight to their planet. When the survivors regained consciousness, they introduced themselves as the crew of the Stellaris scout ship Lumina. Marcus Sato, said the man with metallic skin. I was a structural engineer in Toronto. Now I can transmute inorganic materials. Lucia Alvarez. The woman with glowing eyes nodded. Former meteorologist. I can manipulate atmospheric conditions and generate energy fields. Jason Kemp, the partially phasing man added. I was a surgeon. Now I can phase through solid matter and heal organic tissue. We've been tracking Vrexian movements throughout this sector, Marcus explained, once they had recovered. Their fleet is massive, but scattered. They're searching for something or someone. Us, Alex stated simply. All of us. Phoenix Protocol hybrids. Lucia nodded grimly. We've encountered 2 other hybrid groups. We were trying to establish a network when we were caught in that asteroid storm. The newcomers shared vital intelligence. Cassiopeia Prime, their original destination, had fallen under Vrexian influence. A safer meeting point had been established at a hidden outpost in the Taurus Nebula. How many of us are there? Morgan asked. Jason's expression was solemn. From what we've gathered, at least 50 activation events have occurred. Small groups like ours, scattered across 17 sectors. An army, Richard murmured. Not yet, Marcus corrected. Disorganized, confused. Many don't understand what's happening to them. The Vrexians are hunting us down before we can unite. The Phoenix 5 exchanged glances. Their mission had just expanded dramatically. The Aegis can transport all of us to the Taurus outpost, Alex decided. Together, we'll have a better chance of finding others. As they charted their new course, Diana pulled Alex aside. I've been analyzing the Stellaris data from the Nexus core. There's something troubling about Protocol Phoenix that I haven't shared with the others yet. She projected a series of genetic sequences. These aren't just random modifications. Our DNA was specifically targeted. The Stellaris didn't just choose random humans, they chose us for genetic compatibility with particular abilities. Are you saying we were selected before we were even born? Alex asked, horrified. Diana nodded slowly. Stellaris seeders visited Earth centuries ago. They left dormant genetic markers in certain bloodlines markers designed to activate under specific conditions. Like some kind of genetic time bomb, Alex whispered. More like genetic potential, waiting for the right catalyst, Diana corrected. But yes, the implication is that the Stellaris were planning this for generations. The revelation added a new dimension to their situation. They weren't just random abductees. They were the culmination of an ancient plan. The journey to the Taurus Nebula took them through contested space. Twice they had to evade Vrexian patrols, relying on the Aegis' superior stealth capabilities and the combined powers of both hybrid teams. During a particularly tense moment, hidden in the atmosphere of a gas giant, while a Vrexian cruiser passed overhead, Marcus approached Alex in the observation deck. Your team has adapted remarkably well, he noted. It took us weeks to achieve the level of control you've demonstrated. Alex watched the swirling gases outside, her reflection ghostly in the reinforced viewport. We haven't had much choice, but I still don't understand why us? Why now? Marcus's metallic skin rippled with emotion. The logs we've deciphered suggest the Stellaris were facing extinction. The Vrexian threat was overwhelming their defenses. Protocol Phoenix was their last hope, seeding their knowledge and abilities into compatible species across multiple worlds. A genetic legacy, Alex murmured. Exactly. But they couldn't predict when the activation would occur. It seems to have been triggered by some recent Vrexian activity. Perhaps they discovered a dormant Stellaris outpost. The revelation gave their mission even greater weight. They weren't just fighting for their own survival or Earth's safety, they were carrying the torch of an entire civilization. When they finally reached the Taurus Nebula, they were greeted by an astonishing sight. Hidden within the colorful cosmic clouds was an asteroid that had been hollowed out and converted into a base. A dozen ships of various designs were docked around it, each bearing Stellaris modifications. Welcome to Haven, Lucia announced. The first gathering point for Phoenix hybrids. Inside Haven, they found nearly 100 humans from Earth, all transformed like themselves. Each group had a similar story, ordinary people abducted, awakened with extraordinary abilities, and thrust into a galactic conflict they barely understood. A council had formed, led by a woman named Dr. Eleni Kostopoulos, formerly a quantum physicist from Greece. Her hybrid ability, navigating probability paths to glimpse possible futures, had made her a natural leader. The Phoenix Five, she greeted them warmly. Your arrival was predicted, though the timing was uncertain. The Aegis transformation is particularly significant, the only known case of a full station reconfiguration. Over the next few days, they shared knowledge and trained together, each hybrid team bringing unique perspectives and abilities to their collective understanding. Diana worked closely with Dr. Kostopoulos, combining their analytical abilities to map Vrexian fleet movements and predict possible attack vectors. Morgan trained with other telekinetics, learning finer control and greater power. Richard collaborated with temporal specialists, exploring the dangerous boundaries of time manipulation. Zoe found kindred spirits among the technopaths, expanding her interface capabilities exponentially. Alex studied molecular structures with other matter manipulators, developing new techniques for reconfiguring complex alloys. But tensions simmered beneath the surface of their growing community. Some hybrids advocated aggressive action against the Vrexians. Others, wanted only to find a way home to Earth. Debates raged about their responsibility to the wider galaxy versus their loyalty to their home planet. During one particularly heated council meeting, a hybrid named Eliza Torres, whose ability to absorb and redirect energy made her formidable, pounded the table. "We should strike now, while we have surprise on our side. The Vrexians don't know our full capabilities yet." "Strike where?" Richard countered. "Their empire spans hundreds of systems. We'd be annihilated." Dr. Kostopoulos raised her hands for silence. "Both perspectives have merit, but neither addresses our most pressing concern. The Vrexians are developing a way to detect Phoenix Protocol activations remotely. If they succeed, nowhere will be safe, not Haven, not any hiding place in the galaxy. And not Earth," Alex added quietly. A somber silence fell over the gathering. "There's a Vrexian research facility in the Cygnus system," Dr. Kostopoulos continued. "According to our intelligence, that's where the detection technology is being developed. If we could infiltrate it—" "Infiltrate a Vrexian stronghold?" Morgan interrupted incredulously. "That's suicide!" Diana's astral form flickered beside her physical body, a habit she'd developed when thinking deeply. "Not necessarily. Not with the right team and the right plan." All eyes turned to the Phoenix Five, who had already demonstrated their effectiveness as a unit. Alex felt the weight of expectation settle on her shoulders. She glanced at her team, seeing the same mixture of fear and determination in their eyes. "The Aegis was designed for stealth as well as combat," she said finally. "And our combined abilities give us advantages the Vrexians won't expect." Richard sighed dramatically. "I suppose if someone has to undertake an impossible mission with a high probability of painful death, it might as well be us." Despite his sarcasm, his expression showed resolve. The mission was planned meticulously over the next 3 days. The Phoenix Five would take the Aegis to the Cygnus system, infiltrate the research facility, and sabotage the hybrid detection technology. If possible, they would also gather intelligence on broader Vrexian plans. On the eve of their departure, Dr. Kostopoulos shared one final piece of information with them. The Stellaris left something for USA final refuge if all else fails. She showed them coordinates far beyond the known galactic arms. They called it Genesis, a world they terraformed specifically for hybrid survival. If Haven falls, if we lose this war, Genesis is our fallback. "Let's make sure we don't need it," Alex replied firmly. The journey to the Cygnus system was tense but uneventful. The Aegis stealth systems, enhanced by Zoe's deepening connection with the ship's AI, allowed them to slip past Vrexian patrols undetected. The research facility orbited a barren moon, sprawling complex of interconnected structures, bristling with sensor arrays and defensive weaponry. "No direct approach possible," Diana reported, her astral form having scouted ahead. "But there's a maintenance conduit on the southern quadrant. Minimal guards, automated systems only." Their plan was elegant in its simplicity. Richard would create a temporal bubble around their shuttle, effectively making them invisible to real-time sensors. Diana's astral form would guide them through the facility. Zoe would interface with Vrexian systems to locate the detection technology. Morgan would provide defensive cover if needed. Alex would molecularly destabilize the technology once found. The approach went flawlessly. Richard's temporal manipulation cloaked their shuttle in a pocket of altered time, rendering them effectively invisible to Vrexian sensors. They docked at the maintenance conduit, where Diana's astral form had already disabled the automated security systems. Inside, the architecture was disorienting, designed for the insectoid feline Vrexians rather than human proportions. Gravity felt slightly stronger, the atmosphere thicker and warmer than they were accustomed to. "The central research lab is 2 levels down," Diana whispered, her astral form flickering beside them. "Limited personnel at this hour of their cycle." They moved silently through dimly lit corridors, encountering only maintenance drones that Zoe easily redirected with her technopathic abilities. The few Vrexian workers they passed were oblivious to their presence, thanks to Richard's localized time fields. The research lab itself was a cavernous chamber, dominated by a spherical device suspended in a gravitational field. Consoles surrounded it, attended by 3 Vrexian scientists. "That's it," Zoe confirmed, her mind reaching out to interface with the alien technology. "The hybrid detection array. It's calibrated to sense the unique energy signatures of Phoenix protocol activations." "Can you disable it?" Alex asked. Zoe's expression was grim. "No. It's isolated from the main systems. Security precaution. We'll need physical access." Morgan glanced at the Vrexian scientists. "I can create a distraction. Draw them away from the consoles." Richard nodded. "I'll hold a time field around us. But be quick. This level of manipulation is draining." Their plan unfolded with practiced precision. Morgan telekinetically triggered alarms in a distant section of the facility. As expected, 2 of the scientists rushed to investigate. Richard accelerated time in a bubble around the remaining scientist, causing him to experience a sudden urgent need for rest. And he too departed. Alex approached the spherical device, placing her hands on its smooth surface. "Zoe, I need guidance. Which components are critical?" Zoe interfaced with a nearby console, her eyes glowing as she processed the alien design schematics. The central choriot contains quantum resonance crystals, calibrated to Phoenix energy patterns. Disrupt those, and the entire detection network will fail. Concentrating intensely, Alex reached into the device's molecular structure with her mind. She could feel the crystalline lattices, the precise atomic arrangements that allowed it to function. With careful precision, she began to alter key bonds, introducing subtle flaws that would render the technology useless without making the sabotage obvious. "Hurry," Richard urged, sweat beading on his forehead from the strain of maintaining the time field. "I can't hold this much longer." Alex completed her work just as alarms began to blare throughout the facility. Not from their presence, but from something else. "We've got a problem," Diana's astral form reported, suddenly appearing beside them. "A Vrexian command carrier just entered orbit. They're deploying troops throughout the facility." "Routine or response?" Morgan asked tensely. "Unknown, but our exit is about to be cut off." They retreated from the lab, moving swiftly through increasingly crowded corridors. Vrexian soldiers marched in formation, forcing the team to duck into side chambers and maintenance alcoves. Their escape route was nearly cut off when a full squad of Vrexian elite guards took position at the maintenance conduit, where their shuttle was docked. "Options," Alex whispered. Richard's face was pale from exertion. "I can't maintain another large time field. Not right now." Morgan flexed his fingers. "I could try to move them telekinetically, but not without alerting the entire facility." Diana's astral form flickered as she concentrated. "There's another way. A waste disposal chute 3 corridors over. It leads directly to the exterior, near where we're docked." They made their way to the chute, narrowly avoiding detection several times. The disposal tunnel was cramped and noxious, but it brought them to an exterior hatch just 50 meters from their shuttle. As they emerged onto the moon's airless surface, the full scale of their predicament became clear. The Vrexian command carrier loomed overhead, its massive hull blocking the stars. Dropships were deploying troops across the facility's exterior. "They know," Zoe realized, her connection to the facility's network still active. "Not about us specifically, but they've detected anomalies. They're initiating a full security lockdown, using the moon's low gravity to their advantage." They bounded toward their shuttle. Morgan used telekinesis to divert attention, hurling debris to create false movement signals on Vrexian sensors. They reached the shuttle just as the first Vrexian patrol spotted them. Energy beams lanced across the lunar surface, missing them by meters. Richard, summoning his remaining strength, created one final time bubble around their shuttle as they detached from the facility. In the confusion, they slipped away, accelerating toward the Aegis waiting in a hidden position on the far side of the moon. Once aboard their ship, they wasted no time. The Aegis rocketed away from the Cygnus system, Zoe guiding it through a series of rapid hyperspace jumps to throw off any pursuit. Only when they were safely beyond Vrexian sensor range did they allow themselves to relax. "Did we succeed?" Morgan asked, collapsing into a chair, exhausted from the continuous use of his abilities. Zoe's eyes glowed briefly as she accessed the Aegis long-range sensors. "The detection array is offline. They're attempting to restore it, but the molecular flaws Alex introduced are cascading through the system. It'll be months before they can rebuild it, if ever." A collective sigh of relief filled the command center. "But we learned something else," Diana added soberly. "Something I glimpsed in their central database. The Vrexians aren't just hunting Phoenix hybrids as a potential threat. They believe we possess something called the Stellaris Key, some kind of ultimate weapon or technology." Richard frowned. "Do we? Is that in our genetic modifications somewhere?" "Unknown," Diana admitted. "But it explains their obsession with capturing, rather than simply eliminating hybrids. They think we're the key to something they've been seeking for centuries." Alex stared out at the stars streaking past as they traveled through hyperspace. "Then we'd better find it first." Their return to Haven was triumphant. The sabotage of the detection array bought the hybrid community precious time to organize and prepare. But the revelation about the Stellaris Key added urgency to their mission. Dr. Kostopoulos called an emergency council meeting upon hearing their report. "If the Vrexians believe this key exists, then it almost certainly does." The Stellaris were known for their contingency planning. A research team was assembled, combining the analytical abilities of multiple hybrids. Diana led the effort, her academic background and astral perception giving her unique insights into the Stellaris mind. For weeks, they pored over every scrap of data recovered from activation sites and Stellaris vessels. The answer, when it finally came, was both profound and unsettling. Diana presented their findings to the assembled hybrid leaders. "The Stellaris Key isn't a weapon or a device," she explained. "It's us specifically, our combined abilities. The Stellaris designed Protocol Phoenix not just to preserve their knowledge, but to create a specific sequence of power combinations." She projected a holographic model showing interconnected energy patterns. "When certain hybrid abilities are used in precise combinations, they create resonance patterns capable of affecting reality on a quantum level." "Affecting reality how?" Alex asked. "Creating or destroying matter, opening gateways between distant points in space, even manipulating fundamental forces," Diana replied. "But the power would be immense and dangerous. The Stellaris themselves feared to use it except as a last resort against extinction." The implications stunned the assembly into silence. They possessed, collectively, the power to reshape reality itself, power the Vrexians sought to control for their own expansionist agenda. Dr. Kostopoulos finally spoke. "This changes everything. We aren't just refugees or soldiers. We're custodians of a power that could save or destroy civilizations." The debate that followed was intense. Some argued that such power should never be used. Others saw it as their only hope against the overwhelming Vrexian forces. In the end, they reached a compromise. They would research the key's potential, but vowed to use it only if all other options failed. As the council dispersed, Alex found herself standing alone on Haven's observation deck, watching distant ships come and go against the backdrop of the nebula's swirling colors. Morgan joined her, uncharacteristically quiet. "Hard to believe 3 weeks ago I was collecting garbage in Seattle," he said finally. "Now I'm part of a group that might determine the fate of the galaxy." Alex smiled wryly. "I was worried about getting the coffee orders right during morning rush. Seems trivial now." "Does it?" Richard asked, approaching with Diana and Zoe. I think those normal lives, the ones we took for granted. Exactly what we're fighting to protect. Diana nodded thoughtfully. The Stellaris chose ordinary humans precisely because we understand the value of ordinary life. Zoe, who had been the quietest among them since their return, finally spoke. The Aegis has been analyzing possible future encounters based on known Vrexian patrol patterns. We can't stay at Haven much longer. Neither can the others. We're too concentrated a target. Where will we go? Morgan asked. Alex looked out at the stars, determination hardening her features. Everywhere. We spread out, find more hybrids, build our network. The Phoenix will rise not as a single flame, but as thousands too many for the Vrexians to extinguish. As if in response to her words, the Aegis of Phoenix hummed to life, systems activating in preparation for their next journey. The Shipons, a derelict research station, now a vessel of hope, had become as much a part of them as their hybrid abilities. Richard raised an eyebrow. I suppose if someone has to fly around the galaxy, recruiting for a cosmic resistance against an insectoid empire, while wielding reality-altering powers, it might as well be us. Despite everything, they laughed, 5 ordinary humans bound by extraordinary circumstances, carrying the legacy of one civilization and the hopes of another among the stars. The Aegis of Phoenix departed Haven the next day, its course set for the distant Pleiades cluster, where energy signatures suggested another Phoenix activation had occurred. As the ship accelerated into hyperspace, its 5 guardians stood united on the command deck, no longer defined by who they had been on Earth, but by who they had chosen to become among the stars. Their journey was far from over. Encounters with other hybrids, epic battles to curb Vrexian expansion, and the moral question of whether 5 ordinary humans could bear the weight of an entire civilization's destiny awaited them. But whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together as the Phoenix 5.